Content warning. This video will talk about sexual assault and violence. If you cannot handle this or this is too disturbing, please click away now. She was assaulted against her will. Look at this painting. A woman sawing through a man's neck. Blood spraying across white sheets. His hand desperately gripping her maid's face as he tries to fight back. The artist was 19 years old. Her name was Artemisia Gentileschi, and 1 year before she painted this, her painting teacher assaulted her. 7 months later, she testified against him in court. During the trial, they tortured her with thumb screws, medieval torture devices that crush your fingers, to make sure she was telling the truth. He was convicted. He served 8 months, and then Artemisia painted this, the most violent depiction of this biblical story ever created. The question art historians have debated for 400 years, is that her assaulter's face on the man getting his head sawed off? By the end of this video, you'll know what happened in that trial, why Artemisia chose this exact biblical story, and why this painting is more violent than every version before it, and whether this is revenge art or just the greatest work by a female artist in the Italian Baroque. But first, who was she? And why was she even allowed to paint? Judith slaying Holofernes, painted 1612 or 1613 by Artemisia Gentileschi, when she was 19. It's an oil on canvas measuring 158.8 centimeters by 125.5 centimeters. Now in the Museo Capodimonte in Naples. This painting shows 2 women, Judith, a biblical heroine, and her maidservant, Abra, murdering an Assyrian general named Holofernes by cutting his head off while he's drunk. Artemisia was born in Rome in 1593. Her father, Orazio Gentileschi, was a painter, a follower of Caravaggio. Her mother died when Artemisia was 12. By age 15, she was already painting professionally. Not decorative flowers or portraits of ladies, full Baroque religious scenes. At 15, her father recognized she had extraordinary talent. But here's the problem. Women weren't allowed in art academies. They couldn't study from nude models. They couldn't learn anatomy by dissecting corpses like male artists did. So, Orazio hired a painter named Agostino Tassi to tutor her privately, to teach her perspective, composition, and technique. Tassi was in his 30s, Artemisia was 17. In May 1611, Tassi assaulted her. According to court testimony, Tassi came to the house when Orazio wasn't home. He attacked Artemisia in her bedroom. She fought back. She tried to cut him with a knife, but it didn't matter. Afterward, Tassi promised he would marry her, which under Roman law would essentially erase the crime. That's how the legal system worked back then. You assault a woman, you marry her, problem solved. Artemisia waited. Tassi didn't marry her. He was already married to someone else and hadn't bothered mentioning it. So in March 1612, Orazio filed a lawsuit. Not because his daughter was assaulted, but because Tassi had damaged his property. Under the law, Artemisia wasn't a person, she was property. Her virginity had monetary value for marriage prospects, and Tassi had destroyed that value. The trial became public and brutal. Here's how 17th century Roman courts tested if a woman was lying about assault. They tortured her. They used a device called thumb screws, metal rings tightened around your fingers with screws until they crushed the bones. If you maintained your testimony while being tortured, you must be telling the truth. Artemisia was tortured during the trial. While her fingers were being crushed, she repeated her testimony. And she said directly to Tassi in the courtroom, "This is the ring you gave me, and these are your promises." He was convicted, sentenced to 5 years of banishment from Rome. But the sentence was never enforced, or was quietly annulled. By 1613, he was free and working in Rome again. Sometime in the next year, Artemisia started painting Judith slaying Holofernes, and she made very specific choices. First, Look at the violence. This isn't clean. This isn't symbolic. Judith isn't daintily touching a sword to Holofernes' neck. She's sawing through it. Hand on the sword, one pulling the head, arms tensed, full body weight pressing down. The blood doesn't drip. It sprays. It jets across the white sheets. His neck is half severed, muscles and tissue visible. And he's fighting. His massive hand grips the maid's face, or at least tries to, and grabs her shirt collar. You can see his fingers digging into her delicate features. His body arches. His mouth is open. This is a man realizing he's dying and trying desperately to survive, yet there's no hope. Judith's face shows effort and focus. Not rage, not joy, just determination. She set out to accomplish this, and she will. This is work. Physical work. The maidservant leans in, helping hold him down. This is two women collaborating to murder a man, and Artemisia painted every brutal second. Want to know how different this is? Caravaggio painted the same scene in 1599, 13 years earlier. Artemisia definitely saw it. In Caravaggio's version, Judith looks disgusted. She holds the sword delicately, almost squeamish. The maid is old, standing back. Holofernes bleeds, but it's restrained. The violence is there, but it's distanced. Artemisia's version, the maid is young, strong, actively helping. Judith isn't squeamish, she's committed. The violence isn't happening at arm's length. These women are in it, physical, powerful, and unflinching. Every other Judith painting before this showed her afterward, holding the head, looking peaceful. Artemisia painted the moment of the kill, in the final seconds of Holofernes' last dying breath. So here's what everyone wants to know. Is Holofernes painted as Agostino Tassi? Art historian Mary Gerard argued in 1989 that this painting functions as cathartic expression of the artist's private and perhaps repressed rage. That Artemisia painted herself as Judith and Tassi as Holofernes. Visual revenge. And look, the timeline supports it. Assault in May 1611, trial in spring 1612, where she's publicly humiliated and tortured. Tassi gets barely punished, and then she paints this? A woman violently murdering a man who thought he was safe, who was drunk and vulnerable, who underestimated her. It's tempting, it's dramatic, and it makes sense. But here's the thing. Artemisia was also just an incredibly talented artist painting a popular biblical subject that lots of artists painted. And maybe she painted it more violently because she understood violence personally, because she knew what it felt like to fight back, because she knew rage. More recent art historians have pulled back from the revenge interpretation. They argue we shouldn't reduce Artemisia's entire artistic output to her trauma, that she painted strong women because she was interested in strong women, that she painted violence because Baroque painting was violent. But here's what's undeniable. This painting is different. It's more physical, more brutal, more real than any version before it. And whether or not that's because of Tassi, it's because Artemisia understood something about power and violence that male artists didn't. Want to know the wildest part? Someone actually commissioned this. The painting was likely commissioned while Artemisia was still in Rome, though records are unclear about the exact patron. What we do know, throughout her career, Artemisia constantly fought to be paid what she was worth. When dealing with powerful Medici patrons in Florence years later, she had to battle for payment she was owed. Her friend Galileo Galilei, yes, that Galileo, wrote letters on her behalf to help collect what she'd earned. Even with extraordinary talent and growing fame, she still had to fight to get paid fairly. That's the reality for women artists in 1612, and honestly, not much has changed. Let's talk about how she actually painted this. Artemisia was a Caravaggista, follower of Caravaggio's style, and it shows. Dark background, light source from the left illuminating the action like a spotlight. Chiaroscuro, dramatic contrast between light and shadow. But look at the colors. Judith's dress is a bright gold. The maid wears red. Both have their sleeves rolled up, a practical detail. They've come ready to work. The red blanket laying over Holofernes looks like that of royalty, for which he was. And yet these two unsuspecting women were able to slip in and take his life from him. X-rays show Artemisia changed the arm positions multiple times before settling on this. She was working out the physics. How much force does it take to saw through a neck? What angle? Where does the weight go? This isn't decoration, this is problem solving. The sheets are white brilliant, which makes the blood shockingly red. Blood on the sheets, blood in spurts, blood on Judith's hands. Artemisia studied anatomy. She knew how blood moved. Holofernes' body is muscular and powerful. His hand is huge, oversized deliberately, emphasizing his strength, which makes it more impressive that these two women were able to overpower him. And their faces, Judith is focused. The maid is straining a bit, but committed. These aren't idealized faces. These are real women doing hard physical work. So what happened to Artemisia? After the trial, Artemisia's father quickly arranged a marriage for her to a minor artist. She moved to Florence, had children, and kept painting. In 1616, she became the first woman accepted into the Accademia delle Arti del Disegno in Florence, the art academy. She painted for the Medici, for Charles I of England, for the Spanish court. She was successful, famous, and respected. She painted Judith and Holofernes multiple times. There's a second major version now in the Uffizi in Florence, and other Judith-related works throughout her career. And every time people ask the same question. Is this about Tassi? Is this revenge? Artemisia never said. She just kept painting powerful women. Susanna resisting the elders, Cleopatra, Esther, women who fought, women who survived, women who won. Here's what matters. Whether or not Holofernes is Tassi, this painting shows something revolutionary. For centuries, male artists painted Judith as beautiful, serene, untouched by violence, even while committing it. The violence was aesthetic, distant, and clean. Artemisia painted it real, bloody, physical, difficult. She painted what it actually takes to cut off someone's head. She painted women strong enough to do it. She painted rage and effort and determination. And she did it at 19 years old, while her fingers were probably still healing from thumb screws, while her assaulter was walking free. That's not just revenge. That's announcing yourself. That's saying, I'm here, and I'm powerful, and I will not be delicate. Today, Judith slaying Holofernes hangs in the Museo Campo di Monte in Naples. There's a second version she painted later in Uffizi in Florence, less violent and more refined. But this one, the first one, is the one that matters. This is the painting where she was working it out, the rage, the skill, and the statement. The painting is still doing what Artemisia intended, showing that women can be powerful, violent, capable, and unflinching. So what do you think? Is this painting about Tassi? Was she painting revenge, or was she just painting women the way she understood them, strong enough to do what needed to be done?